Good evening, good morning, good afternoon to our global audience, and thank you for joining us for this panel discussion on an ever intriguing topic, unlocking the power of online talent paradigm. Uh, Remote working is not new, right? And we've been hearing in the earlier track as well as this track, that we've been living with it for quite some time now, several decades actually. In fact, it can be traced down to early 1970s, where NASA had a few of its employees work remotely to run experiments on telemedicine. And a little later, 1979, when IBM had five of its employees to work from home. And it turns out that both of these experiments were successful. Just to put that into context, right? These were tried even before the advent of internet. Some more recent stats: the number of fully remote U.S. companies rose from 26 in 2014 to about 180 in 2019. That's about a 14-time jump. Besides, it's estimated that about 60% of the entire global workforce worked remotely at least once a week in 2019. It is, however, in 2020 that nature decided to show us a way of harnessing the real potential of remote working. Indeed, COVID-19 has brought about a renewed focus in the entire concept of remote working itself, and more interestingly, brought the gig workforce paradigm to the center stage. It's pretty much shaken us all up out of our comfort zones, and now leaves us really thinking and pondering if this was the right thing to do in the first place itself. To peel the layers around the same and to chat up a little bit more, I'm joined by an esteemed set of panelists: Ruchi, Randal, Stella, Bhal. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to start with a fundamental question, right? In terms of just the philosophy of remote working at your organization, as well as a gig workforce itself, right? What are your organizations thinking about? Randall, I'll start with you. Trane Technologies is into heating, ventilation, and cooling systems. Uh, Given this, I assume there's a fair part of your workforce that needs access to labs, testing equipment, etc. Uh, Given this, right, what has been the big shift around remote workforce pre and post COVID?
Well, great. Thanks for the question, and thanks for allowing me to talk today. I manage actually two engineering centers in India, one in Bangalore and one in Chennai, and we do engineering and technology work, design work for our products globally. During the pandemic, of course, as everyone, we're doing as many jobs as we can remotely. Attrition is the biggest productivity killer that there is. It's even a bigger issue now since hiring and onboarding can be really difficult. So we do everything we can to work with employees. We listen to employees to find a way to make the new normal every bit as good as the old normal. Certainly there are roles like lab technicians which can't be done remotely. And we've been fortunate that we've been able to do some of the connections and things like that in our laboratories. But we do have tools that allow us to monitor equipment, start equipment, test equipment remotely as well. Most of the lab activities that we do at our campuses in Chennai and Bangalore are software testing. And so while it's nice to do that in the environment, we are able to do most of that remotely as well. But I think key point is that from a productivity standpoint, we really do need to continue to do all we can to retain the workforce that we have.
Great. Stella, my next question is to you, and larger in terms of just the philosophy, right? Uber is a global unicorn. The perception of Uber out there is you are poster child of the new age digital workplace. Can you give us a sneak peek into what it is like to be a digital age worker at Uber?
Sure, Faraz. It's interesting how the pandemic has fulfilled what CIOs and CEOs were doing for the last 10 years, which is digitizing the entire workforce as well as the work economy, so to speak. When we look at digitization, we look at it from three aspects. One is the workforce, and the workplace. And Uber, over a period of time, has ensured that we've built systems where these operate in a seamless manner. The work is cloud enabled, and as a result of which people can continue to work in most locations that they are in. And of course, the experiences, the technologies that we provide to our teams, provide collaboration opportunities in any part of the world. An interesting one was because we were reasonably digitized, that Uber just from our business model, it works because cities move. And lockdowns across the globe did not help this. We realized, however, we have a new model that's coming up, which is on the eat side or delivery side. And the interesting that we did in this phase of lockdowns and working remotely and transition into digital working was even change the business model from what we have called rides to eats or delivery, as we call it now. Because we were digitized, we were able to move not just workforce to digital working, but also change the work model predominantly from a rides to eats.
Got it. So that quick switch over is something that you were able to make because you were digitally enabled. Got it. Ruchi, you represent Pitney Bowes, and Pitney Bowes completed its 100th year in 2020, right? And congratulations on that. Your org would have seen it all in terms of the workforce trends. I want to understand, what is it like Pitney Bowes, right? In terms of just your culture. Is it one that actually prefers employees coming into office, or has it encouraged moving with times, right? In terms of just embracing the concept of remote working, as well as perhaps even the gig workforce and working with the gig workforce?
Sure. Thank you, Faraz, first for having me here. And the conference has been going absolutely great so far. So coming back to your question, Pitney Bowes has had very robust people, process, and cultural fundamentals. If an organization goes through motions over a century, they are bound to develop a variety of antibodies that can help it stand recessions and continuously innovate and embrace new much more easily. Telecommuting in the US workforce has been around for a really long time. And this trend is not just restricted to US. Of course, current times are making us view the work from home as a forced measure than the one when it was voluntary. I will say that while we've remained a very flexibility pro organization, including our engineering centers in India, there have been times when we've discussed that, is it being taken for a ride? Is it creating a lax environment? Should we monitor it more closely, etc.? And cut to the current times when the novelty or infrequency or optionality around work from home has worn off. There are clear upsides that both individuals and the organizations have started to realize. For example, elimination of long commutes, increased productivity, reduced attrition, attracting talent without the hassles of having them to relocate, lucrative freelancing or gigs. All of these are having most organizations, including ours, reconsider our long-term view on work from home.
Absolutely, I think those are some of the benefits that we're seeing at large, across the world, actually, right? Bhalla, I'll come to you. You represent Mindbody, and for those who don't know Mindbody, it is into a niche segment. It provides software for wellness service industry. Talking about your India presence, Bal, the organization is run about a year old here, right? And at a time where you're just about settling down with your operations, you're being forced to move into remote working, right? How has this impacted your India operations, and do you consider this as a setback, this entire situation?
Thanks, Faraz. Thanks for having me here. And yeah, it's a great question, actually. Yeah, we have been in India for less than a year now. We started in August last year. And all of us are new to each other, and really the team bonding is still developing, right? We are still not there. In fact, since March, we have been on lockdown. We have onboarded so many people, and we have situation where entire teams, including managers, have never met each other in person, right? Everything is virtual. And this obviously creates challenges in bonding, collaboration, and building the team spirit. However, when we looked at it, we had to relook at whole of the employee experience as they onboard. And it was not like, we could take the existing experience and just convert it to virtual. We have to really think through every step and what does it mean to be in the virtual world, right? From onboarding, getting their trainings, ramping up, and so on. So I have been a strong believer that, in crisis times, actually, a lot of us, it brings a lot of good things out of many of us. And we have seen that actually happening. Many of my team members have gone, beyond their job duties and responsibilities and have tried to help. In the initial lockdown period where, we could not send the laptops and other hardware to our employees' home, my office manager actually, took a pass from government and actually physically went and delivered those laptops, right? So I've seen a lot of these examples in last 3-4 months, which made me believe that in some way, I think this is a good time for us because as we are building the teams, this whole environment is creating more natural bonding between the teams. And from a business standpoint, I see that this is not impacting us at all. In fact, as we come out of, starting to come out of this slowly, I see that our 2-year roadmap for India Center is getting compressed to probably 1 year or 1.5 years. So we are actually accelerating our growth path in India because of the COVID.
Absolutely. I think that's like they say, crisis brings out the best out of people, and that's what's really reflected there. My next question is, I think Ruchi pointed to it, and I just wanted to peel the layers a little bit around this in terms of course, there's a clear advantage in terms of working remotely, working with the gig workforce, just opens up the access to a larger talent pool, right? But besides that, and I'll start with Randal. What do you think are the other positives and the opportunities that you see that remote working or the entire online talent paradigm is just bringing about? Your 2 cents on that.
Just 2 comments, Faraz. First of all, as an engineering organization, we're a project-based organization. One of the things that remote working allows us to do is better deliver on promises on time. And the reason I say that is oftentimes when you're involved in a project, you may have 15 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hours left to complete a deliverable. And if you're racing to try to catch a shuttle bus at the end of the day, you may put that off until the next day. Whereas working remotely gives us the opportunity to finish those deliverables on time while it's in the front of our mind to get that done. And I think the other thing is a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, our company signed the Paradigm for Parity. We want half of our workforce to be women by 2030 and in leadership positions. And in engineering, it's a challenge to find enough women in order to have 50% of your workforce there. And so retaining the women that we do have was important to us. And so I did a lot of one-on-one interviews and a lot of group interviews to find out what kinds of things could be helpful, because they have other responsibilities that some of our male employees may not have. Working remotely was one of the things that they suggested, at least on a part-time basis. And I can tell you it's paid huge dividends in terms of employee engagement and our ability to retain employees.
Absolutely, I think those are absolute positives, that are coming out from the entire online talent, working situation. Ruchi, anything to add to that in terms of the opportunities that you see that this entire online talent paradigm has brought about?
Sorry, I was on mute. I think we've continued to focus on business efficiencies even through this time, and I think gig economy and the online talent pool will be more pervasively leveraged in post-COVID scenario, given the shift to reliance on remote work. So I see this as an opportunity that will get unlocked even in India slowly. While our headquarters is leveraging the freelancers and the gig workforce, But we've been slow to embrace it, but I see this as a trend that we will rely on as we move along.
Got it. Um, with positives and opportunities come challenges, right? And I'd like to probe a little bit more on the challenges that you as organizations are really facing. And also, it'd be great if you could share how are you going about mitigating some of these challenges. Uh, Bhalla, I'd like to start with you. One of the things that we often hear from organizations and the clients that we talk to is, hey, you know what, remote working really doesn't suit and doesn't help in innovation, right? Or perhaps even more important, IP protection. Think about working with a gig workforce. I think we've always been hesitant from doing that. One, because of the IP protection concerns. But more importantly, even with the remote working scenario in core R&D kind of work, from an innovation standpoint, we just don't believe that we can innovate as well as we can in an in-person kind of a scenario. I wanted to hear your viewpoint on that particular piece. Okay, looks like we've lost Bal temporarily. Let me pose that question in a different way, actually, to Randal, right? Randal, you're an engineering leader, right? And for you, I'm assuming, again, innovation, productivity, efficiency, and collaboration are top priority, right? And you spoke about how perhaps employees have become efficient because they can use their time more effectively. But what about collaboration, right? One of the key concerns that we hear from engineering teams is, hey, collaboration is not as great as it is in an in-person environment. Your 2 cents on that, Randal?
Yeah, clearly that continues to be the case. It can be very challenging when you're working remotely, and there is really no substitute for being face to face or side by side with your coworkers when you're having meetings. At the same time, our workforce is very tech savvy. We do a lot of software development. We have a lot of IT professionals and programmers on our team. And so they are finding ways to use the tools effectively. In addition to that, because much of the work that we do is in collaboration with teams who are located in Europe or the US, we've already had a good deal of experience of trying to work collaboratively without being face-to-face. They've already used video conferencing, Skype, WhatsApp, etc., for meetings before the pandemic. Many calls happened in the evening or early morning. And as a result of that, we've seen very little issue with our collaborative experiences.
So, if I were to summarize, Randal, do you think, and in a one-word answer, do you think you as an organization will be able to achieve the same amount of collaboration working remotely?
One-word answer, I would say close. I think it's close to what we were able to do before. I wouldn't say 100%, but it's very close.
One word answer to that, you're playing safe. Okay, that was not one word. Right. I'm going to move to Ruchi, right? Ruchi, one of the things that we've often heard is, one of the challenges rather is on the mental wellness, emotional well-being, and just the entire, element of exhaustion in this, specifically in the COVID scenario, but even in a remote working scenario with situations at home, etc. Can you talk through in terms of how is your organization really going about, dealing with that challenge?
Sure. I think in uncertain times like these, while we continue to focus on business efficiencies, we get reminded that even the best systems and technology won't work if our employees are in distress. And as we navigate this new terrain, we are focused on ensuring that our employees' concerns are heard in order to address and close employee experience gaps. We've done pulse checks twice so far. We are making sure that whether it is online helplines, whether it is counseling facilities, whether it is seminars to educate them on mental health and well-being, nutritional well-being, making sure that as we invade the homes of our people, blurring the lines between work and their lives, it is very important to make sure that we use this opportunity to convey what Pitney Bowes stands as an organization, even to the families. So we are using every opportunity to make sure that we get seen as a compassionate, empathetic employer, and also I think what will be most important through this time is that as we traverse this and move to 2021, our aim will be to continue investing in building a diverse, inclusive, collaborative, like Randal said, and a future-ready workplace. But you used a word exhaustion. It's very, very important to talk about it. Working from home certainly sounded like the stuff of dreams for many of us. But the burnout and round the clock productivity or overarching anxiety to do more and to continue to do more is for real. As an organization, we are doing all that we can to explicitly as well as implicitly table this discussion. And it is very important to understand that if the pandemic is here to stay and we are not resuming until we are all vaccinated, or at least not in the next 6 months, we need to take a hard look at what this continuous fatigue is going to do, what this monotony is going to cause, and how it's going to wear off the mental health and well-being of even the most healthy of us. And it is important to manage it well. As much important it is for leaders to recognize these symptoms themselves, it is also important to allow employees to be their own masters of time and their breaks. If this is going to be the new norm, then what are going to be the new protocols and vacation schedules going to look like? Because, I'll share one anecdote right now is we've been requesting our employees to take off. One of our employees who we were talking to is working excessively round the clock, all of that, etc. So he did share, he says, my family's been complaining. I went back to my hometown and I haven't even had a cup of tea with my father. I've been on continuously on my laptop because I feel that what is it that I do, even if I, take a break, there is no place to step out, there is nothing else to do, so might as well continue working. But what we are not realizing is that this continuously switch on mode is going to wear off the best spirits as well. So we have to watch out for these behaviors and intercept and encourage people to take time off. And we are doing that as an organization. And there is, of course, so much more that has to be done and so much more thinking that is still required.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the key challenges and concerns that we often hear from the industry. Stella, I'll come to you. And this one's a little tricky, right? And in the side chat earlier in the talent track, Sudeep mentioned that culture eats strategy for breakfast. I'd add lunch and dinner to it. And there's a reason for it, right? Strategy is perhaps creating a strategy for culture is much difficult than maybe strategy for business, right? And to achieve the cultural alignment is that much more challenging. What's your viewpoint in terms of how have you gone about in your organization to align the culture, most importantly in a remote working scenario? Because like I alluded to, prima facie Uber is that new age digital organization. And how have you really struck that balance in culture given the situation?
Yeah, that is definitely something that's staring in the face of most of us in our organizations in terms of not just at an org level, but even at a team level and even at a individual level in terms of how we come across in this remote setting. One of the things at Uber that we practice is, keeping in constant touch with our employees to kind of understand what's the sentiment. Many parts of the organization, especially in APAC, we have chatbots, which periodically, will buzz to see how the person is doing. So we get live feedback to understand what is happening and what's the sentiment. There is a lot of touch points. In fact, as we onboard, we continue to grow, especially in India. And as we onboard individuals who've never seen the office, who've never had opportunities to kind of meet face to face, it's been a very different experience for them because the sense of belonging, the sense of camaraderie still hasn't developed for them to form those strong links. So one of the things that we've encouraged is on a weekly basis, touch points with all our employees at a team level, especially those who've onboarded in the last 3 months or so when we started completely working remote. The other aspect that we focus on is ambient meetings, where managers are able to keep the time open for people to pop in and pop out, and have a more casual conversation. Culture, as we know, is just a set of beliefs, practices, and activities that we do together and practice and believe strongly, right? And these evolve, one, of course, in formal structures and systems, but also in an environment which is casually set up, especially for people who've joined recently. So ambient meetings is one of the things that sort of work well for us, that's practiced. And we're also bubbling up a lot of practices that each manager has evolved. It's interesting how everybody has been started coping. So we're building a repository of what different teams and managers are doing, and we cascade that out on a weekly basis. So people can pick and choose what works for them, because you can't standardize culture. It's what works for you and what works for the teams.
Makes sense. I'm going to take a question or two from the audience, right? And also, it's a good segue into something that I was anyways going to talk about in terms of engaging your workforce, right? One of the questions, and I'm inviting anyone to pick this up. How do you protect? And I'm reading this. How do you protect a hardworking employee in terms of recognizing him in this current situation where there's no touch and feel, the employee is not right in front of you? There are just it's the person's work that that of course comes to you. But how do you go about recognizing a hardworking employee? Is the question that we've got. Randal, do you want to take that?
Sure. In my opinion, recognition should not change as we're doing remote working or working in the office. We have a number of ways that we recognize employees, both formally and informally. In the formal ways, where we give awards and things like that for productivity or for leadership, we're continuing to do that in this environment as we have in the past. But it is critically important that we continue to recognize employees informally as well, whether it's through their performance review or just giving them some kind of a informal recognition among members of their teams. I wouldn't change anything from a recognition standpoint.
I think makes sense in terms of if you really look at an employee engagement framework of sorts, right? You could have providing them great digital tools, career mentorship, learning and development become core aspects of engagement. Employee benefits, of course, especially in the evolving situation, become core, and rewards and recognitions, right? So if we were to put this together, and we were doing some research as well, if you really think about it, the key levers of engagement don't change, but perhaps the modalities of them need to be tweaked and customized for the current day and age and situation. We have limited time, so I'm going to move on to one kind of a tricky question. I'm going to play a devil's advocate here. I'm going to ask this question, right? Given the entire remote working scenario, and that's what we're talking about, do you think there is an inherent disadvantage for India GCOEs now that the remote working situation has created a level playing field for global talent access, right? And there's a lesser case to co-locate teams in a particular location. What are your thoughts about that? And Bhal, if you can, if you're up back with us, maybe you can take this. All right, I think he's still his network is patchy. Randal, can we take this?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. One of the things.
Hey, sorry for my trouble at my end.
Go ahead,
can
Bhal.
you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, Bhal.
Yes, Bhal, go ahead.
Hi. So my thought is that the inherent advantage which India has not really changed in terms of whether it's a cost arbitrage or skill arbitrage or availability of talent, English-speaking population, and so on. In fact, we are now able to go to tier 2, tier 3 cities for our talents, and this would actually be more beneficial in the longer run. The way I look at it globally, what's going to happen, in my opinion, is that we have been, if you look at some of the cities like New York or London or San Francisco, they have been pretty high on the talent compensation part. And we wanted talent there because they're either near to our headquarters or they're near to our customers. Now, if you remove that and say that, you can go to talent anywhere, the inflation of compensation at those cities would probably start going down, and probably the more tier 2 and tier 3 cities will have their compensation going up. And today we are talking about, let's say, 5 or 6 hubs in India from a software perspective that could become like 20 or 30 software hubs, and that would probably is actually good for everything in the longer run, right? Whether it's environment, decongestion, deurbanization, and so on. So I don't see that there is a challenge for India in this new world. In fact, it should be more beneficial.
Absolutely. And Randal, if I were to pose that question to you, you're a global leader, right? And for you, that's an easy question that you can ask, right? Why do I need to move my work to India, for example, right? What is your
I have a great answer for that. In the 1950s in the U.S., there was a bank robber by the name of Willie Sutton, and after he was arrested, people asked him, "Willie, why do you rob banks?" And his answer was, "Because that's where the money is." And similarly, we have teams in India because that's where the talent is. I believe that there will be a shortage of engineering talent long term. India has a talent pool unlike anywhere else in the world. Regardless of cost, we have to have talent. We have to have teams in India. And we'll continue to do that regardless of the pandemic. I agree with Bhal that it'll actually be beneficial long term for workers in India.
All right. We're on the top of the hour. I have a couple of quick one-word answers that I'm expecting from you. Do you think in 2020 you will work with the gig workforce on the technology side of things, right? And maybe 2021 now. Let's take that. So I'll go around the panel. Let's start with Bhal. Yes, no?
Probably no.
Stella?
Possibly.
Ruchi?
Yes, maybe.
And Randal?
Yes, I think so.
All right. The next one is when you come back, when the situation settles down and we're back into the new normal, like we say, what is the percentage of remote workforce that you think your organization will settle with? Bhal?
So we are looking at least 1/3 people working from home at any given point in time. So we'll have people rotating, like few people coming 2 days a week, other coming remaining 2 days, and so on. But at any point, 1/3 will be at home.
All right. Stella?
We have flexible practices, so even today people can work remotely. But my guesstimate would be that it would definitely, compound. I would think about 50% plus.
All right. Ruchi?
Yeah, same as Stella. I think we would, 2021, we are only looking at 50% resumption of workforce.
All right. And Randal?
Yeah, we're going to do some experiments as leases come due. We're going to experiment with trying to downsize our office space and have more work remotely. And I would guess it will probably be 1/3 that will work remotely in the future.
Got it. And my last question to the panel: what was that one remote working hack that you learned during the lockdown? And yeah, what did you really learn? I mean, this could be a fun and witty response as well.
I don't say I would learn. I actually love my afternoon naps, and this was never possible in office. Now, actually, I can schedule a lunch break and do my naps. So I'm actually enjoying this.
Guess what? Even Pari said the same thing. Stella?
Make hay while the sun shines.
All right. Ruchi?
I think what it's not a hack, but it's a big takeaway for me, which is that a crisis affects everyone differently. So it's important to respond to moments that matter and respond in a personalized way, one employee at a time, one interaction at a time. And as the workforce mix changes, full-time, gig, different demographics, all working remotely, moments that matter will allow us to learn more about what's really important to our people. And responding in a personalized way will determine organization experience and will create anti-fragility. That will allow goodwill capital to get created, which will be a source of immense competitive advantage. It'll also lay foundations of companies and talent that are built to last over the next decade or so. So personalized experience and seizing those moments is my takeaway.
Brilliant. Well said. Randal?
Yeah, and I'm going to pile on and agree with a lot that Ruchi said. She talked earlier about mental health in employees. I encourage all of my employees when we're doing conferences to turn their camera on. It makes sure that people are keeping up with themselves, but also it gives you an opportunity to make sure if you see them face to face, you can sense if they're in distress or not. And so that's one of the things that I've done differently, and I take away from this.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, everyone. Our panelists, special thank you to you, and our audience. Thanks so much for coming in and joining us. And sorry I'm not able to take a lot of questions. We're on top of the hour. Thanks, everyone, and have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thanks, Faraz.
Thank you, Faraz.